So my mother was a part of a sewing circle back in the day. As part of the church, she sold Avon, and when they had them Avon meetings, they didn't always talk about the stuff in Avon. Didn't come outside the Avon meetings all the time. You know, that's all I'm saying. So just because they have their little meetings and their little level of secrecy that goes along with it, doesn't necessarily mean that it's nefarious because there are certain things that they don't talk about. For decades, it seems that there's been a argument inside the black church. However quiet, it still seems to be an argument. Some people believe that black Greek lettered organizations are about scholarship, service, and brotherhood or sisterhood, while others seem to believe that they cross a line into ritual, worship, and idolatry. So the real question is simple. Can somebody be a committed Christian and still be Greek? Peace, 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 and blessings. What's good? This is your boy 7 Inglewood Zone right now in your zone, and this is another episode of Society Breakdown, where we do a little bit of analysis into the cultural diaspora, and today is no different. So we've been talking for a while about the goings on of the announcements and black Greek letter organizations and kind of the intersection of those organizations with people who are Christian or Christian associated or however that goes, and there being some sort of uptick in denouncements and renouncements, denouncements of the organization, renouncements of the letters, and so hopefully you know the difference between the two. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like every year there seems to be some sort of uptick right around the first couple of months of the year. There's these renouncements of these organizations with claims of idolatry and cult behavior and using words like necromancy. And from that, we're seeing some of these testimonials are becoming quite viral in their representation. And, it's something that sounds salacious, it's going to spread. And that's just like the Kwame Kilpatrick video that I recently released. You can check it out right here, where, he was to the state of denouncing his letters. And to be frank, so I was recently updated that he wasn't officially expelled from the organization as I had previously thought. And, so I'm one who definitely can stand in his correction. So I take that correction and I appreciate that. So I appreciate the brothers getting me straight on that, and that he wasn't officially expelled from the organization. However, I would still say that with him and with all of the denouncements or renouncements that we've been seeing lately, it just seems interesting that they're choosing these platforms to do it. Like they're seeking some sort of attention as they are making their final exit. Like I guess from a lot of us, the overall attitude has generally been, well, if you don't like it, you can leave. Like no one told you, no one kicked you into the room. You walked in of your own volition, and so for you to leave and then go out kicking and screaming, it's kind of weird because everyone's like, well, you did this on your own. This was your choice. I digress. All of that to just say that this has been happening for quite some time, and the recent videos that we've seen from Melissa Blair and Kwame Kilpatrick and other announcements that have taken place recently, this isn't necessarily new, but it's just interesting. And I'll ask you all, what do you think is the impetus behind these the uptick of these renouncements? Now, just keeping things light, so I won't like delve deep into scripture or anything like that today. But if y'all need to, let me know in the comments and we'll have that conversation. But to keep things generally light, it seems like the arguments against Greek life entail that some of the rituals that they have or that we have, I don't want to try to make myself seem like I'm not within a Greek letter organization. I mean, obviously. But it seems like some of our rituals and symbolism could resemble spiritual ceremonies, right? And just to speak to that, I'll say that a lot of things that we do are in metaphor, right? They're symbolic of certain things. There's certain things that we as an organization, and of course I can only speak to my own organization, but there are certain things that we as an organization represent, and some of the parts of our process are representative of the goals of our organization. And so a lot of things we do are symbolic in that sense. So so that in itself doesn't necessarily mean that these things, these ceremonies, are anything but what they are. They're just ceremonies to help you matriculate within the organization and to get you to the next step or wherever you are in your process. So in that, it just seems interesting that this is this sort of argument that's made as if just having a ceremony in itself means that some sort of way you are doing something nefarious, when we see graduation ceremonies all the time, and I've yet to see a graduation ceremony look like people were about to praise Moloch or Baal something like that. And then there's the argument of there being like gods in some of our historic language. And listen, I can only speak for my own organization, but and I've done some research. I've done a small amount of research, and so I won't say I've done the exhaustive amount. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But if anybody can tell me who the God is that we supposedly are worshiping, and then let me know if it's Greek or Roman God, because I think there was a distinction that was missed before in the conversation with Miss Belair when she was talking about how they were worshiping Greek gods, when Minerva is a Roman god. Athena would be the Greek goddess that you would be. Anyway, but I'm just saying, if anybody can tell me who the God is that Alpha Phi Alpha is worshiping, that would be great. I mean, I can start there, and then we can go through the lineage there. But give me something concrete. Don't give me your theory. Give me something concrete, okay? The most that I can say that I've seen within our organization is something in relation to gods, little g, and that's in a poem. And I'm well aware of the part of the Bible where they say you cannot serve two gods. Okay, fine. Where is the second God? Where is it? And then there's claims of oaths and secrecy, right? So I mean, when you are making oaths and you're making these pledges and things, I just find it interesting that there are certain pledges and oaths that you will make and certain ones that you won't make. I mean, if you're a doctor, you're going to take the Hippocratic oath, right? If you're a policeman, you're going to be sworn in to office. If you are working as a politician, you're going to be sworn into office and place your hand on the Bible or whatever book that you choose to. It doesn't have to be a Bible. Could be the Constitution. Could be any sort of a book, to be quite honest. But that's what takes place. So those pledges and oaths are okay, but it's only in the sense of a Black Greek lettered organization that somehow that there's an issue. And I get it, because you could be making an oath that, I don't know, the organization is the guiding light of your life. I mean, it's not. We would hope that the aims of the organization are perpetually abound in your life, but the organization as a whole does not dictate who and what you do. And then just to get into the secrecy part, right? So my mother was a part of a sewing circle back in the day. As part of the church, she sold Avon, and when they had them Avon meetings, they didn't always talk about the stuff in Avon. Didn't come outside the Avon meetings all the time. That's all I'm saying. So just because they have their little meetings and their little level of secrecy that goes along with it, doesn't necessarily mean that it's nefarious because there are certain things that they don't talk about. I mean, don't women do that anyway? Don't men do that anyway? Don't people in general do that anyway? See, don't try to make it one-sided. Everybody does it. This is my point. We all do that. So why is it only bad in the sense of a Black Greek lettered organization? That's my question. Lastly, I'll say that there's the argument that there's some sort of loyalty to the organization over their faith. Now, again, like I said, we hope that the your organization and its aims and its goals become the guiding light or part of the guiding light of your life, but it doesn't mean that it is the end all and be all, or as one sister said,
because they're telling you that the delta light is the light that you're looking for because the light in Christ is not enough. And so you need the delta light.
Because that is not the case whatsoever. And that's all to say that it seems from the Christian perspective, and I'm primarily talking about Christian and Christianity because they seem to me the ones that are making the most noise when it comes to these organizations, and only black Christians, not any other types, just black Christians, only us tearing down us once again. But it just seems that when you're in that space, and especially if that's all anything that resembles some level of spiritual ritual outside of Christianity is going to be labeled idolatry. If all you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And in this case, if all you have is a Christian hammer, then everything spiritually related is going to look like a nail. And you're going to beat it over the head with that Christian hammer. Period. And looking at things from the other side, right? So for us, rituals are symbolic. Like I said, they are metaphors. If you're not somebody who understands metaphor, then sometimes symbology will hit you right in the face, and sometimes it'll go completely over your head. And you're probably not able to discern in different situations what is what. So I feel for you. I feel for you, to be quite honest. But I'll just say this. As far as our rituals and ceremonies, right? When someone is matriculating through their process, at no point are they lifting up their hands to the gods or to a god or in worship in any sort of way. At no point does that take place. And we're talking about something that happens once. We're not talking about you going to your meeting, your chapter meetings, and every time you go to chapter meetings, you're praising your deity and raising up your hands and uplifting your. Do you know what worship is? Do you know what worship is? I mean, I just wonder. I just wonder if people know what these words mean when they're saying these things, or do they just only want to tear down these black organizations and they're using these words to do it? Like they have no real goal but to just tear down black organizations. I don't know. I just kind of wonder about things like that, right? But I don't want it to be seen as all of these things that have come out from some of these organizations. And again, we do our best. We try our best to, I think, across the board, weed out and mitigate those rogue entities that decide that they want to do something outside of what we consider part of the matriculation process. So we do our best to, police those as best we can. But as a whole, for the organization as a whole, right? Does all that stuff really outshine the service, the scholarship, the leadership, the core missions of our organization? Does that really do that? Does that take that away? Because I'm really hopeful, because when I think about our organization, when I think about any of these organizations, I think about service, community. Like, these are the things that come to mind when I think of these organizations, because I see them in action, because I see them often. And I'll admit that, I was blessed in the high school that I went to. Shout out to Hubbard High School. We had a bunch of black male teachers at Hubbard. And, and there were quite a few that, you could as you're a young teenage boy, you're kind of looking and seeing like, okay, well, you're trying to figure out your place in this world and what kind of man you want to be in it, right? And there was always someone who kind of stood to me above the rest, and that was our band director. That was Mr. Cross. Shout out to Mr. Cross. Mr. Cross was a Q from Ohio State University. Played trumpet. He also played a lot of the other brass instruments, but trumpet, he can make a trumpet sing. And he was somebody that I just thought stood out among the others as far as just somebody that, I would look at as far as like you could almost say a mentor. Actually, yeah, he was a mentor. Let me not even get it twisted. He was a mentor. And it's not to say that, I necessarily obviously didn't become a Q, but he was my introduction into Black Greek life. And from him and to others that I would kind of just see throughout my life as far as status and stature and how they carried themselves and how they kept themselves up and what they were about, what their aims and goals were, I kept feeling myself pulled in a particular direction. And that's how I ended up in the organization that I'm a part of. And I would imagine that's the story for a lot of young men and even older men who have joined from undergrad to grad, who have decided that, this is something that they want to pursue. But all that to say that this was my introduction into Black Greek life. And I would imagine that I'm not alone. I mean, we're working right now as an organization. I think I can tell this. We as an organization right now, like our chapter is working on a scholarship right now that we're offering. I mean, we've already been offering a scholarship, but we're working to expand our current scholarship offerings. And we're also taking 76 students in these upcoming weeks on a college tours of the some of the HBCUs across this nation. So these are the things that we're actually doing as an organization, right? So I don't want it to be confused or outshined in some sort of way that somehow in our goal to give these students exposure to college life, that somehow in some sort of way we're nefariously trying to introduce them to demonic idolatry and some sort of evil symbology. Is that what you really think? Like, think about that. And let's not forget about the copious amount of members who are a part of our organization who are also members of the clergy or ministers or church leaders. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., of course. Elder Emmanuel Cleaver. And then Raphael Warnock, Reverend. So you mean to tell me that the work of these men that they've been doing for us, for our community, for like the efforts that they've put in? I mean, the civil rights movement alone, right? We're going to say that all that was done, all that was done was under the guise of a demonic and idolatrous organization? Because let's not sleep on the fact that Black organizations, that these Black Greek letter organizations have been at the back of all of these Black movements. All of them. We've been in the background of all of them. Do we just completely dismantle their efforts because their efforts weren't what they could have been because they were part of a Black Greek letter organization? Is that what we're supposed to be doing right now? I mean, these Black organizations have been a part of these Black movements and the Black community for decades. For decades. How long have we had a Voteless People is a Hopeless People program? Go to high school, go to college program. Like, that's what we are about. These are the things that we are about, and education is the cornerstone of what we believe in. So I'll ask you all, right? So maybe you all can tell me. Tell me, what does ritual mean? What is tradition? What is worship? What is symbolism? right? Because you can see these very same things in military ceremonies, and no one's calling them out and saying that the military is a part of a demonic cabal, or they're involved in an evil idolatry of any sort. Like, you don't hear that, even though at this time, at this present time, when we are on the verge of World War thrice, we don't see. I mean, we see that these leaders have the nerve to try to bend their tongue to tell these people that they are fighting a holy war, when we still got Muslims and agnostics and atheists in the military. So who are they fighting for? I'm just wondering, who are they fighting for? But I'm just saying. But even in that, no one's saying that that's demonic, and no one's denouncing it. No one is denouncing the government. And let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted. Especially when we're talking about pledges and oaths. We do a pledge to we do a pledge to the flag of the United States of America. Now, I could get into, we could have a whole different conversation about what that even means and what that stands for and all that good stuff at another date and time. But I'm just saying, as far as the pledge itself, we do pledges to the flag. And where is the, hey, I denounce that? Where's that? Where's the denouncing of that? Where's the denouncing of the college university ceremonies? Where's the denouncing of the person praying over the candlelight vigil? Where is that? I'm just asking, why is it only a denouncing or renouncing that's taking place with regard to these organizations? Why is that? I mean, because I genuinely want to know where it is that people are drawing the line. Where is it? Where is the line? Where is it like, oh, this pledge is only okay as long as it doesn't affect my daily life? I mean, then how did the pledge or oath that you did with your organization that you only did once, how did that affect anything? Like, that's what I want to know. How is one okay and the other isn't? Where do y'all draw the line? Where do you draw the line when it comes to what oaths are okay, what ceremonies are okay, what rituals are okay, when you participate in all of them, with the exception of the ones that are in regards to your Black Greek letter organization, which is doing nothing but servicing the neighborhoods and communities in which they are part and bringing about and talking about scholarship. And, it seems like every year we have to see these these renouncements taking place, right? And, I started off kind of asking this question. So, but here's kind of my reasoning behind it, right? So I think that these renouncements are at an uptick every year, kind of in the spring-ish time of the year, because this is the time of, I mean, if you think of it kind of like a fitness center, like a Planet Fitness or Crunch or something like that, like every year around, December, January, they're trying to get you in. New year, new you. Hey, come in. We got the new rates. Don't you want to do your body better this year than you did last year and all this stuff? I think the churches are kind of getting in on that too. Honestly, I think they are. I think they kind of, saying, oh, man, it's time for revival. What's the best way to have a revival if not to remove the things that are not of God within you? Just like Kwame said.
Oh, search my heart, Lord. See if there's anything in me that needs to come out of me. And he pointed right to this.
So I think that they're just kind of, I think there's a type of spiritual marketing that's taking place with regard to these organizations. And if I'm being frank, I will say, I just think that's really telling how much that they would rather destroy or besmirch the name of their organization or former organizations, all in the name of this God that they're talking about. And you know, and this is kind of one of the reasons why that, you know, I don't practice, but it baffles me that this is the lane, or this is the fight, that they would rather make. They would rather make this fight than any other fight that's going on. We talk about principalities, we talk about people in, you know, wickedness in high places. You know, none of that. We don't talk about any of that stuff. The only thing that we talk about is regard to this. And that's just something that I'm just gonna have an issue with. But yeah, you've got these religious revival moments and movements where people are also, you know, giving their testimony. Like I said, they're giving their testimony, and when you give the testimony or some behind the scenes, or I just escaped, or hey, this is what just happened to me, y'all, type of story or something like that, something salacious, oh man, the help of social media is gonna let that thing just take the hell off. So yeah, without, yeah, no question. No question. So I think people want to jump on the virality of being the one who's telling the news story of their harrowing adventures through their organization. Because I think at the end of the day, they don't have much left. I think this is kind of like their last salvo of trying to be effective or known in any sort of way. So they're like, do you know me for this? To me, that's kind of how it comes out. And I understand there's also a generational shift, right, in church culture at this time, or at a time when, you know, when we are really uncertain about what's going on in this world, you know, nationally as well as internationally, especially in regard to our place as the United States within this world, right? It makes sense to me at this time that, you know, in uncertain times, kind of like Obama said, you know, people will cling to their guns and religion when they're uncertain. And to me, these are definitely uncertain times. So in these times of uncertainty, they want to go with the group that has the biggest crowd so they can all collectively claim together that now they have it together and they have it right. Clinging to a religion over your organization allows you some level of comfort, or a higher level of comfort than you otherwise would receive. So yeah, I guess I could, in that aspect, or from that perspective, I can kind of see it. And so ultimately that would be the reason that you will have the identity conflicts between, you know, Christian institutions or church institutions or religious institutions, sorry, and Black Greek lettered organizations. But I just look at it from a perspective of, one is about worship. One is about, you know, reverence to a particular deity, while the other is about work. It's about service. It's about collecting together as a group and having a collective mind to work on a collective thing. No different than when you go to work and sometimes you have the pre-work meeting. Hey guys, let's come together. They come to Jesus moment, they call it. Sometimes people have that before they go to work. If you work in technology, we would have something called a Scrum event that where at the beginning of every week we would talk about our work that we're working on, and that's kind of our time of coming together collectively. And it's actually called a ceremony. Is that ceremony demonic? Should I denounce that ceremony? See what I'm saying? Like, I'm just thinking about that. Like, what are we talking about with regard to these things? What is this? All right, so I just kind of want to bring this thing all the way back to the beginning, right? So for some people, Greek life and Christianity can comfortably sit side by side. And it seems for others, the symbolism crosses a line of some sort. And so the deeper issue might not be the organizations themselves, but what they really mean when they saying words like ritual, ceremony, incantation, necromancy. You know, like, what do you mean when you're saying these things? And what is your aim when you're bringing this stuff up? I mean, listen, if it's definitely something that's demonic or about otherworldliness in some sort of way, hey, be down. But if it's really just your turn to tell your story and your time to shine, then let's call it what it is. I'll leave that with you, and I look forward to your comments down below. But with that said, y'all hit the like, hit the subscribe, and share this out with your people and all that good humming. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, you all have a great one, and I will see you on the next one. You take care of each other until next time, and please live dangerously. Peace, and I'm out.